Hey, it's Dean Legge wrapping up number 8 Georgia's 24-17 win over the number 6 Gators. I guess we know who the best team in the SEC East is, at least this week. We'll see what Georgia does from here on out. They've got some tough games. If they'd lost this one, they would have been out of it. They're not there yet, but the path to Atlanta is pretty clear. You win, I think it's 2 more games and you're in. So we'll just see what happens. I thought Georgia had the capability of pushing this game out a little further than they did. I mean, you were getting real close to a 31-10 game. Look, the Gators couldn't do anything. That was the real issue. Was, they went into the fourth quarter with not even 150 yards of total offense. I'd have to look by the. I got the wrong book. It's so difficult down here sometimes, but I just thought Georgia thoroughly dominated them. The Gators wound up with. Did they even have 20 yards rushing? I mean, this game is all about, are you more physical than the other guys? And there was a lot that Kirby talked about after this game that gave insight into, how Georgia felt about this game in terms of what they felt that they could and should do. Okay, so the Gators wound up with 21 yards rushing. That's just, you're not going to win like that. And Georgia with 119, 3.2 yards of rush. Obviously, sacks count in that. Both the Gators and the Dawgs had sacks, but Georgia really punished Florida in the sack game. I mean, well, I guess it was only 2 for 29 yards, but they came at really not ideal moments. This says that Rodrigo missed a field goal. Yeah, I don't remember that. That's wrong. But I think, at the beginning of the game, I was not surprised that Florida kind of got down the field a little bit, but then they really sat down after that. They couldn't do much. But look, the story of the game is Jake Fromm, and I have not been overly critical of him, or really critical of him in general, because I'm not sure how much criticism he deserves in terms of the Kentucky game. I mean, it just got out of control. And I mean, if I got to hear Kirby or anyone from Georgia talk about the 4 turnovers again against South Carolina, that shit is over with, man. And that is totally the reason why they lost that game. It had nothing to do with offensive production. Kirby is 100,000% correct, whatever infinity is on that number. Yeah, I mean, Rodrigo didn't miss. So Florida's got a mistake in this box here. But, Cager was huge, 132 yards receiving. It's ridiculous. DeAndre Swift wound up with 122 total yards. Brian Herrien with 110 total yards. And then Eli Wolf. I mean, Georgia was going to stab you in the heart tonight, and that's what they did. They 26-yard completion. Gators didn't turn it over. I was surprised by that. They played a solid, but see, here's the thing. Neither team turned it over that I can recall.
4th down, the first drive.
Was that a turnover, though?
Yeah.
Technically speaking? All right, well, but there were no interceptions or fumbles. I'm not sure anyone even fumbled a football today. This was a clean game, and the better team won. That's it. I mean, the better team didn't win when South Carolina beat Georgia. But when you turn the ball over 4 times, I'm not talking about that game anymore. People are there's so much Larry Munson in this fan base. They cannot accept that bad things happen when bad things happen. And in terms of the offensive game plan tonight, that's a good Florida defense. Now, we knew that defense was good for a while. Todd and those guys have done a good job slowing this Georgia offense down. I mean, they still can grind you up. I mean, Georgia had not quite 400 yards of offense. Now, Florida had some yards in the fourth quarter when they had to. They just basically started chunking the ball, but they didn't even bother running it. I mean, I just thought this was a case of the better team winning and the better team doing what it had to do defensively, no question. Now, Kyle Trask played better than I thought he would. But a lot of that came again in the fourth quarter, and the best part about being a fourth quarter team is not getting down 14 points in the fourth quarter. You can't be down 14 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, but on the field, I mean, it felt like Georgia was the better team from their first drive. When the Gators came away with no points, it felt like Georgia was the better team at that, at that point. And I just, the celebration after the game was classic Georgia. You know, they've won this decade. They've won 3 in a row. They'll be ranked at least, I would imagine, number 6. I mean, shit, they've beaten 2 top 10 teams that they played in the tie at that time. Why would you not? I mean, I don't think you put them in front of Penn State. I don't know what's happened today, so I can't say. This game is really all-consuming, but Cager made a huge difference. Brian Herrion is just a workhorse. Those catches from those guys, and then Blaylock is steady. He almost busted that punt return as well. Matt DeBary joins me. Matt, you had an interesting perspective. You were on the Florida side, in the Florida upper deck. They thought they were going to win. The fans thought they were going to win this game, and understandably, I mean, I think because they're ranked higher, they were not the favorite. But everyone was telling them that they were going to win this game.
Yeah, the fan base was very cocky. Not cocky, but confident going into the game. I think they wanted to run the ball more. I definitely think Florida abandoned the run, especially in that first half.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, then they had to throw the ball the second half. But all the Gator fans were wondering, why aren't we running the ball? What's going on? And I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Well, because you couldn't.
Yeah. They could. It looked like they did the first drive.
They wound up with 20 total yards of rush. That's bad.
A lot of it did come from the sacks, but I thought
only a few of the. I mean, let's just call it 20 yards from the sack. That means you only rush for 40 yards.
I thought that first drive they were. But no, Georgia was the more physical team. They played better. Georgia has the better quarterback. Georgia has the better defense.
They're just better.
I thought Georgia's secondary played really, really well. There were a couple PIs here and there, but for the most part,
they were all over those guys. They just, whether it was pass interference or not, they were there.
Yeah. Big shout out to Jordan Davis was a monster in the middle. Aziz was bringing pressure, and those guys were getting held a lot. I could see it from my lids. Go on Dog Post, see the pictures. Those dudes were getting held, but they were still wreaking havoc. The havoc that Kirby has been talking to us about all season. But a total team win. That's the best Georgia's played all year. Everyone contributed.
I think it's the best win because it's the best. It's the best they played. Shit, they had 400 yards again on offense. I mean, it's kind of hard to be critical of a team when they're getting 100 yards a quarter. I mean, that means you're scoring a touchdown every quarter.
I thought the offensive play calling was better. They dialed up some really nice plays.
I mean, I hadn't been all over him. A lot. I just want to say this because a lot of people watch these, you know, and I've not been the one that's been going bonkers about the play calling. Right. Definitely not been going bonkers about Jake Fromm. I mean, I've seen this guy for a while.
Well, he owns Florida. Last year, he won it on his own, third down.
He beat them tonight.
He beat them tonight. That third down was one of the best throws I've seen him make in person. But they put the ball in Jake's hands, and he made the plays.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, at this stage, honestly, and you know, look, going to Auburn's gonna be tough.
Yep.
Beating Missouri, you know, I don't know. You know, I'm not going to sit here and, you know, think about Missouri. A&M maybe could score. It's in Athens.
And they still ran the ball. I mean, they wanted to run the ball in Florida. They did, yeah. He said attempts. And then Swift made some plays. Brian Herrion was clutch. I know it was an all-around team win. But again, I told you this earlier. Georgia won in the trenches. The offensive line, defensive line, they both won their matchups. And again, I think the 14th straight year, the team who won had the most yards on the ground. And again, Florida had 21 rushing yards. Kyle Trask was not going to beat him with his arm. He made a nice little comeback there at the end, but a lot of that was Georgia's defense kind of playing prevent, not giving up a touchdown, a big, big one.
Hold on for a second. I do want to just like flip through this a little bit.
Rodrigo did not miss a kick, by the way.
No. They missed that. All right, so the Gators, the problem there, Matt, was that their touchdown drive in answering the Dawgs took 6 minutes and 50 seconds. It was 17 plays.
Yeah.
So Kirby and them were saying, okay, you know.
No, they were nickeling and diming them down the field. Nothing big. Georgia didn't give up any explosive plays. They got the big one on offense. That's where I thought, okay, this game's over after the Lawrence Cager touchdown. I said, that's it.
It felt like it.
Yeah. And then the pass.
Over might been a little bit.
It was like 10 minutes left in the game, but being up here with the Florida fans, they thought it was over then.
Well, you're down. I mean, you know, if I were watching this game on the field, it doesn't feel over until it's over.
Right.
If you were watching this game on TV, you'd be like, they're just down. They're just down 2 touchdowns. I mean, it's no big deal. Well, it's kind of a big deal when you've scored 3 points.
Yeah.
You know,
the 2-point conversion was big just for more momentum, getting it to 14 instead of 13. Georgia played really, really well today. The biggest game of the year. They went out and they earned it.
This is who they are.
They were the better team.
They were
clearly from the first drive. They were the better team.
They played better than they did against Notre Dame. This is going to be people are like, what are you talking about? And by the way, just give us your comments below. What did you make of the win? I mean, it was a big win for Georgia. If they don't turn the ball over against South Carolina, they played really well against South Carolina, quite frankly. But, well, I'm saying that statistically they played very well. But it's impossible to they were not on it that day. But, like, the thing about Georgia is, and Kirby, you're going to the store and you want a Happy Meal. They're going to give you a Happy Meal. The question is, are they going to spill it on the ground when they give it to you? And you're like, why do I have to pick all this up?
Yeah.
That's the fumbles.
Yeah.
This is your Happy Meal.
Yeah, no turnovers. It was huge.
And turnovers are not the end of the world.
Right.
But 4 of them?
Yeah.
I'm talking too much.
But against the Gators, they seem bigger.
They are bigger.
Florida's a team that takes advantage of that stuff. But again, Jake Fromm won the game again. He doesn't lose to Florida. He made the throws. The offensive line, I thought they protected him really well. I thought Florida would blitz more. Maybe they learned their lesson from last year. But they didn't get to him with 3 or 4 guys. I think they maybe pressured him one time.
This was an important year for the Gators to get Georgia too.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about this for a second as well. And down below, tell us what you think about this. And after games, it's just such a zoo. But if you go into this game now next year and you're the Gators, you say, well, we thought we had them last year. Did they ever have the lead in this game?
No.
I don't
3-0, then 10-0, then 10-3, then it just went there from there.
It almost burst.
I thought it was. I was waiting for a DeAndre Swift touchdown run. It was a clear hold, but I was just waiting for that run to really end it.
10-3, 13-3, 16-10. I mean, they never did put them away, so that, I guess, will be the criticism of this whole thing, which is ridiculous.
Most of the game was a 2-possession game.
Yeah, Georgia was in the lead the whole time with 2 possessions. I did want to just one more time. Jake was 20 for 30, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, 52-yard just wide open throw to Lawrence Cager.
I thought he scrambled a little bit too.
He scrambled great.
Yeah, he did a really good job there. That's not going to show up in the stat sheet except for like 5 rushing yards, but those were big yards.
He had 12 yards. He was by average the second best runner for the Dogs. He's not. He is an athletic guy.
Yeah. Lawrence Cager, though, mad props to him. I mean, it just shows you how important he is. And these newcomers too. Don Blaylock making a big catch.
Yes.
Eli Wolf making the game-ending catch. I mean, these guys definitely came to play, and they played really well.
That last call took some balls.
Yeah. James Coley has gotten a lot of heat this year. He deserves a lot of praise after this game, I think. Even though it was 24, but...
Well, let me ask you a question, man. I mean, listen, James, I don't know these coaches at all. I mean, I've been doing this 20 years. I can't know everybody. What is the criticism like? Is it I'm mad we're losing?
I think fans want this offense to be more explosive and score more points. That's not saying he's done a bad job. I just think, and again, all offseason, the expectations for this team and this offense were really, really high.
I don't know, but I mean, I'm just saying that 400 yards of offense every single week.
Yeah.
Again, you're going to get your Happy Meal.
Yeah.
And like 200 of it is on the ground.
Yeah. What was the total rushing yards today? Swift had like 85.
No, I mean they only wound up with 119.
Yeah.
I mean, you were
like it was more than that.
It did. No, it did. But this game was a great win for Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, Jake Fromm, yes, no doubt, he was the best. Well, probably Lawrence Cager was the best player.
I think so.
But this was a big FU for everybody from Jake Fromm. Forget you is probably the way he would put it. But
and Kirby too. I mean,
Kirby, he'll be all right.
Personal for him, I guess.
What was the criticism of Kirby? And what was the legitimate criticism of Kirby?
Criticism
from the fans.
Well,
we have skipped the entire fiasco last summer of Dan Mullen. He had a big mouth last year.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And he has 2 L's now against the Dogs. 3 years in a row.
The Georgia-Florida Twitter back and forth was fun to keep up with. But no, these fan bases hate each other. These coaches are not friends. No. And Kirby's got the advantage big time. I mean, these past 2 years, the program needed this, and I think it was. I mean,
that's right.
It was huge. It was huge. Big win.
Well, I do want to just wrap up saying this too. Had Florida won this game, you would be looking at some serious the questions would come, and legitimately so. Now, I think if you're Florida, you have to say, okay, Todd Grantham has a history of not sticking around forever. That means at some stage you're going to replace that. Who leaves with him? How does that work? Dan Mullen is a good coach.
No, he is.
People want to shit on him. That's fine. He's a good coach.
You can't do what he did at Mississippi State and not be a good coach. He knows what he's doing.
He's a good coach. Yeah. The question for the Gators now is, how do you move forward with someone in your division that is extremely physical and recruits in a way that you've not yet done? That's the question for Florida.
I think they have to have more talent, for sure. Again, it all goes back to recruiting. Georgia has more talented players, and we saw that today. They've got better players, individual players, and they beat them up at certain times of the game.
When you look at the Gators, I mean, I have respect for Florida, no question. They're a great athletic program. They're the best athletic program in the conference in terms of all the sports. But when you look at their situation in football, they had Auburn this year, LSU, and Georgia. They beat Auburn at home. Good win. Those are the physical teams in the league. Florida will not deal with anyone else physical like those guys from here on out.
If you're Florida, the whole season relies on beating Florida State by 50, which I think is what it's probably going to do. Yeah, but their season's over. They're headed to the Outback Bowl.
No. I think they're going to like the Cotton Bowl or the Orange Bowl. We'll have to see what happens with Georgia. They could go to the Sugar Bowl.
You're the bowl guy. So
yeah, I mean, I think if you're the Sugar Bowl, you're sitting there going, do we want LSU? Sure. Do we want Georgia 2 years in a row? Do we want Alabama? Yes. Do we want, you can't really win if you're the Sugar Bowl because you're not getting a playoff.
Right.
So for them to get a 10-2 Gator team,
they'd probably love that.
They would love that. Now, the Gators don't travel. Yeah. Let's just be honest. So that's an issue.
Right. But they haven't had Florida in a while. And maybe they do make the trip.
Well, I mean, it's not going to be Texas.
Right.
So, I think now, though, if you're Georgia, you say, okay, well, we've been dismissed.
Yeah.
And we're still here sitting in class.
Georgia made a statement today, a national statement.
Yeah. We're rambling here, as usual. Yeah. Here's my question, and I'm the TV guy. I'm so many guys. How many people do you think watched this? Typical Georgia-Florida's 5 million, but today there's nothing on TV.
Yeah. 6, 7, yeah, at least. And it was a great game till the end too. It's not like they lost viewers. No. I mean, this was huge. It was a fun game too. If you're an average football fan just tuning in, I think this was a fun game to watch.
It's too bad they've taken the cocktail moniker or whatever the word is for it out of this thing, because it really is a party, and we've got to go participate in things. So please let us know what you think down below. Dean Legge Show tomorrow night. Matt's going to have recruiting updates.